This video will contain spoilers for Avatar: The Last Airbender. So if you haven't watched any of that yet, go watch that first and then come back. I just watched the first few episodes of Netflix's new live action adaptation of Avatar, so I'm going to drink some jasmine tea and go over some of the thoughts I had on it. I was watching it with my husband, who has never watched any of the Avatar before. He doesn't know the plot at all. But I noticed that when Aang's mentor was explaining the four elements to him, earth, air, and water being elements he understood, but he didn't see why fire was an element. But to me, it was perfectly obvious that these were just the medieval elements, so it felt naturally that these would be the four elements that would be picked here. But then I was thinking, well, where did the medieval philosophy get this idea that there were four elements? And I was thinking, oh, well, it comes from Greek metaphysics. And so I was thinking, oh, yes, it goes back to the way Greeks think about things and how their physics and philosophy deals with balance and change. So, of course, it felt natural to me. As Plato writes, Heraclitus, I believe, says that all things pass and nothing stays and continues existing. Comparing existing things to the flow of the river, he says that you could not step twice into the same river. One of the ways that this new live action differs from the anime is that it backs up and starts before Aang is frozen in the iceberg, so we get some additional world building during that time that it covers. It also decided to show Uncle Iroh as in charge of the attack on the Southern Air Temple, which I'm not sure whether I like that. It's definitely going to need a little more nuance in that storytelling, but we'll see how that develops over time. I really liked how they did the CGI and the new live action. The way they showed air and fire interacting in the attack on the Southern Air Temple. It's really great how we saw fire being pushed and shaped by air, and how it would feed on air, but it would also create its own air currents. I thought that was really good. And this created a really exciting visual scene in that attack. Made me think of Exodus 13:12-21. And our Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire from before the people. So with these elements divided into different nations, I feel this natural tendency to think, okay, where is the real power there? Which got me thinking of 1 Kings 19:10-12, The prophet Elijah has demonstrated the power of Israel's traditional God, but has been driven into the wilderness by supporters of the false god Baal. So he said, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. Then he said, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. The Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore into the mountains and broke the rock into pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. So this biblical God is explicitly not in an element, but we also see this God associated with powerful miracles. In Exodus 15:11, who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, strong in wonders? So when I asked my husband what impression of the political situation he had gotten from the world building in the show so far, he said the Fire Nation is communism, period. End of quote. And I'm not quite sure it's that simple, but there is some sort of comment on leadership going on here. We see this asking of people to work without offering them reasonable incentive. We see Saka asking for extra shifts from the guards with just a passive aggressive griping about people not staying their full shifts. And we also see Prince Zuko demanding total dedication to find the avatar or die trying just because Fire Nation. I don't see any real reason there. But Saka is also about making sure the village is fed, though he has more passive aggressive comments about how he needs to do the hunting himself. He wants it done right. So the story is saying something about the balance too. So Proverbs 11:1-3. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes dishonor. But with the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them. When Aang is encouraging Katara in her water bending, he says balance is the key to the energy of blending. And it does seem that this advice helps her. Over the course of the story, we also see Sokka come to an understanding of Katara's advice that leading is not just about feeding people, but about giving them hope.